Good morning and welcome to the first Verse Virtual Book Party of 2022. Still in the pandemic, still with so many restrictions on things we can and can't do. So the format of the party is this. Some of you remember that it's kind of like, I mean it to be like speed dating. You have 5 minutes max to present yourself, your book, read one poem from the book. The idea is to give everyone a chance to say, oh, I like that, I should get that book. That's what this is about. So just to demonstrate how I mean for things to go, my most recent book of poetry, see if I can get it to actually show up, got a 5-star review. It's about poems, poetry, and seduction. And I'm going to read a poem from it called How to Seduce a Poet. And it goes like this: show up with your dust cover off. So totally spoofy, but that's how we're going to go. So as you hit your turn in line, starting with Susana.
Okay, so I don't have a book cover to show you because my books are on the way and the carton is arriving today. So if you hear my bell ringing, that's those are the books. But my book is titled The Damage Done. Its release date is February 1st. It's really a kind of a novel in verse. There's 43 parts, but they're really part of one long narrative. And the narrative has recurrent characters in it, the main one being a fashion model named Janie. And the book focuses on the impact upon her of covert illegal projects of the FBI. She is a donor to progressive causes in the late 60s, early 70s, during the period when J. Edgar Hoover's counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, was flying high. This was a clandestine program which surveyed, infiltrated, and attempted to destroy the reputations of various progressive groups, such as the Black Panther Party, anti-Vietnam War mobilizations, civil rights groups, etc. So I'm going to, her story, because she's dead at the beginning of the book, is told mostly in flashback. And I'm going to read one of those flashbacks. This is titled Flashback Clinic. Getting off the Valium, not so bad. Janie thought a few sleepless nights, weak and fuzzy, sweat, some vomiting. She could keep the speed, can't find the old vials though. Where are they? She might feed solely on love and destruction, a sense of danger. Her pulse feels erratic, as if there's no truth in the beating of her heart. At the clinic appointment her husband forces her to keep, he points out that her dress is the color of bruises. A terrier dog with a chewed slipper, he won't let go of the idea she's ill. She makes a run for it, pushes open the heavy grayish-green doors, quickens her pace past the still life paintings, dozens of vases of flowers. She pants, can't take in enough air, can't stand doctors poking through her business like deranged plumbers. Her husband is right behind, eyes crinkled in fake concern. She knows he would tie her to a cliff face just to try to appease his gods. Thank you.
Okay, that was wonderful. I'm going to interrupt before we go to the next presenter. When I first became a member of the Verse Virtual community and published my first collection, Dear Firestone evidently asked for, didn't require, but asked for members of the community, if they felt they could, to contribute a book to the Verse Virtual library. And I have continued that, and I've been absolutely delighted to get books from many of the members of the community to build a library. If you are so inclined and can do so, I would love to have a copy of your book. I will put my address in the chat. And if you would, as you finish reading, put a link in the chat to where we can find your book, since that's how we're going to buy copies. Okay? So let's go to Tom Zampino.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate being here today. I hope everybody is staying warm. We're in the middle of a pretty big snowstorm today. My story is that I've been a lawyer for many, many years, but in the last 6 years have come to start writing poetry and reflections, and I post them once a week, once a month on a website called Grace Pending. But in August of 2021, I took about 80 something poems that I've written over the years since 2016, and I put them in a book called, if you can read that, called Precise Moment. I think it's backwards on here, at least on what I'm seeing.
It shows okay, Tom.
Okay, great. It's called Precise Moment, and basically I've chose out of about 500 pieces of writing, reflections and poems, 80 that I thought meant the most to me. And a lot of them have the theme about family and friends. And this one is called, and it was published in August of 21 by blurb.com, self-published book. And I'm very happy with the way it came out. This poem is called A Last Time. And I think its meaning will be found pretty quickly. You were a baby. There was a last time that it wasn't strange when I kissed your toes. You were a child. There was a last time that I held on tight as I walked alongside your bike. You were a high school student. There was a last time that I helped you with your homework. You graduated from college. There was a last time that I expected you to return to this place. You made a home with the love of your life. There was a last time that I would ever be first in your thoughts. You and I have both grown older. There will come a last time that I will ever look upon your face. I will always love you. There will never be a last time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't seen James yet, so let's go to Donna Hilbert.
Hi, my most recent book is called Threnody, and probably most of you know, Threnody is a Greek word for lament or dirge. I decided not to be straightforward and call it lament or dirge for fear of turning off people who are looking for something happier. What I'm really pleased about with this book, one of the things is I took the photo and designed the cover. And also, all the black and white images in are from my photos. And that was kind of a pandemic new pursuit of mine, being stuck at home with my wonderful iPhone. I started taking photos and became an obsession. And I found my wonderful new publisher was cooperative in letting me put some of these things in. And I'm very happy about it. I will say how much I love Montag Press. Just kind of a dream situation for me. So all my poems come out of my daily life. I don't reach for something fancy. Everything that I care about or want to write about is basically right in front of me. I walk, I cook, I spend time with my family, I grieve my losses, I celebrate my joys. And I love to teach workshops and write and walk, and I think that's what I write about, my life. I'm going to read the poem Risotto for you. It was first published in Gyroscope. And I also listen to music, as you'll find out. Risotto. Down again. Tonight, it's the purple of heirloom tomatoes I slice into olive oil, garlic, red bell pepper, short-grained rice, a pinch of saffron or two. I add broth one ladle at a time. I stir the rice, and I am stirred by Beethoven's sonatas, alive in the fingers of Emil Gillis, and stirred too by the winter setting that fills the window I look through to the sea from my station at the stove. When the Wallstein sonata begins, I cry into the copper-clad skillet I use for sauteing petrol sole and for making frittata and risotto. No need for a special pan. No need to steep a broth from scratch. Bouillon paste from a jar plus water will do. Beethoven wrote 32 piano sonatas. Emil Gillis recorded all but 5 before he died unexpectedly in Moscow. Svatoslav Richter believed the KGB had killed him, fearing he would defect to the West. You might add lemon zest, capers, or olives if your risotto needs more zing. All that really matters is the stirring until every bit is tender. Add broth, stir. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Tom Montag, you're up next. Still muted, Tom.
My book is called The River Will Tell You, Poems Along the Key Yapaha. It was just published. I got my copies earlier this week by Quail Press in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And the sort of intro note at the beginning of the book tells something of the story. So I'm going to read that and then a poem. Thanks to the generosity of Suzanne and Carl Kelm, in October 2018, I was able to spend a week writing poems along the Kiyapaha River in north central Nebraska on their ranch called Wishin' Jupiter. Wishin' Jupiter, as I remember, was the name their daughter gave to her first bicycle. And when the Kelms bought their ranch, it sounded just right for their piece of land. Certainly the place is a terrific one for writing poems. These are some of mine which were inspired there. They don't necessarily form a sequence, but as a series, they are united by the land which helped to form them and by the river which moves through it. The bitterness of cedar in such hard country, the line of the falcon straight to business, and this wind without mercy. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Next up, I believe, is Michael Minassian.
Hello, everybody. My book is called A Matter of Timing, and it won the Poetry Society of Texas Book Award 2020 and was published this year. Actually, 3 years ago, I came in second in the book contest, and it was actually the winner of that year's winner who encouraged me to submit my manuscript this past year. And so thanks to him. Just want to also mention that the photograph here is actually one of my photos, the cover. It's from a slide I took probably around 1982 in Connecticut, and it was featured in the Fort Worth Community Arts Center 2019 also. Had a slideshow, which is amazing. that anybody had a slide projector anymore, but the museum did, so very happy about that. The poem I'm going to read is called Little Bear. The last time I was in Yellowstone, the park ranger told me a hiker had been found half-eaten, most likely by a bear. Nothing and no one else around him except a dirty backpack lying half open next to his body. Best not to travel alone, the ranger said, especially on those backcountry trails, and carry some bear spray or learn how to play dead. In the Tang Dynasty, Zhang Ji slept in a village near a bear's den. Even the tigers and deer knew not to make a sound. But once, in danger, he recited a poem while the villagers slipped away, then shared a bowl of rice wine with the bear, waiting until it fell asleep. But most times, that won't help. No amount of art or artifice will keep you safe. It's just bad luck to run into a grizzly. And Zhang Ji probably lied, returning the next year to the village and marrying a woman he nicknamed Little Bear. Thank you.
Excellent. I believe next up we have Betsy and Alan, who will be co-presenting their book.
Thanks very much, Jim. This is really going to be a breakthrough for Betsy and me because we usually plan these things, and I'm so obsessive compulsive that I plan it down to the second, but for various reasons we haven't had a chance to do it. So we're kind of winging it. Well, here it's the afternoon where some of you are, it's the morning. And thanks for getting up. You can see behind me, the title of our book is In the Muddle of the Night. And we'll tell you a little bit about how it came to be and what it is. I will tell you that Betsy and I met on some of the various poetry sites online, including Verse Virtual. And I discovered that she had been born in Willimantic, Connecticut, which is a town that I had spent a year in, wasting my life when I was in graduate school right after I wasted my life for 4 years in college. So it's very near and dear to me. You know, when Betsy and I became friends, I suggested to her that we begin to swap prompts and write some poems off of the same prompts. And that didn't last too long. We have a few of those, but one of the things that did happen when we were reading each other's poems is we discovered we had quite a lot in common. And that was the genesis of the book, which became In the Muddle of the Night. Betsy will tell you a little bit about how the book is structured, and she's a very hard sell. I think she said she's going to include a timeshare weekend in Torrance, California. I think she has some openings for every purchase of the book. So Betsy, why don't you talk about the structure of the book and then read your poem.
Okay. Yeah, you can share my bedroom with me and 3 cats. I'll even move to the floor for anyone who'd like my uncomfortable sofa bed. Anyway, yeah, Alan and I also spent 1 year in Willimantic. So quickly, Alan realized that I had nothing to say about Willimantic because I was born there and we moved to Wisconsin when I was 1 year old. So I have very few, if any, memories of Willimantic. But I am hoping that when the pandemic ends, a friend of mine who lives in West Hartford promised she would take me and we would try to find my ancestral home there. But anyway, I have Alan and I, you know, we started this before the pandemic and met in person a couple of times, including, I think, January of 2020, and then that fell apart. So we were working on this throughout the pandemic, which did help keep me sane, at least a little bit sane. And in the end, we were having trouble trying to figure out an organization, but we found pairs that we liked, and we had some that were written intentionally where we wrote them. One of my cats is trying to get out of my room. In response to each other. And the other section was called Stumbling into Furniture, which I guess implies that they just happened to be on the same subject. Alan can correct me if that's not what he meant by stumbling into furniture. But
never correct you.
What's that? You would never correct me. He's learned a lot from Jeanette. She knows. Yeah, she's taught him well. So anyway, being kind of a weird person about numbers, we were trying to figure out how many to put in here. And Alan's birthday is on the 28th of his month, and mine is on the 14th of my month. So we decided on 14 pairs, which came out to be 28 poems. And the ones we chose to read today kind of go along with Donna's book. They're both in the section called Mourning, which is also appropriate for me as my mom's yard site. Her 22nd and the 22nd anniversary of her death is coming up in February. And this one's about my father, whose birthday, which I still haven't calculated, I think he would be 95 in February as well. And this is about my father. And it's called I Was Texting. After Coffee Break by Kwame Dawes. After your breakfast and a shave, bathed and massaged, you relaxed. The intake person had come. You hadn't been in hospice more than 18 hours. The dietitian stopped by to find out your favorite foods. No holds barred now that death was near. The social worker came to offer whatever other comforts she could bring. I muted my phone. After all of these visits and messages from friends and family, I focused on you at last. Your eyes were closed, but you were awake, I could tell. The thing to do was to read you a story, just as you had so often done. I don't recall the book, but as I told you the backstory and resumed on the page where I had left off, that damned prescription came to mind. I said, I'll be right back, and picked up my phone. By the time I finished, you had gone home. Thank you.
And my poem, which accompanies Betsy's, again, we stumbled into furniture here. We just found that there was a commonality. My father's yard site, the anniversary of his death, is coming up in February 19th. And this is a poem about him and me. It's called Early Morning Story. My father lay in intensive care, not caring to live. And I didn't care to see him die. So I went away. It was night, late, 2 a.m. The corridors of Coney Island Hospital were empty enough to hold my grief, which I told myself I didn't feel. To this day, I wonder why what I tell myself can't be what I really find inside. You say, let's stop such telling for all time. So you take a book and read to me like the child I am, and your voice, insisting it be heard above the noise my useless telling makes, falls soft and long, and only on the sudden word, the simple phrase, teaches me to listen, to attend, and so to love all over again. It feels so late, but now I know I could have read to him even then. There he was near the end, and he might have heard some love in me that could have soothed this dying man who loved me so, yet taught me to confuse the desire for things with the want of love.
Excellent, thank you.
It was too long to turn the page. The piece I find so strong in your human voice is maybe in us all. Maybe was in him. and now I know in me, if I care enough to look. Thanks for everybody for listening, and buy many copies of In the Muddle of the Night. I hope Betsy will put in purchasing information, because you can buy directly from her, and it comes with one genuine signature of one of the authors and one faked signature of the other author, which will make this book incredibly valuable. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you both, and my apologies for interrupting you, Alan. Marjorie.
Well, this is actually good timing for a number of reasons. This is also a collaboration. So I have a book where I collaborated with photographer Karen Elias, and what we did was that we took a stone that Karen had, a heart-shaped stone that has a crack down the middle of it, and sometimes she wrote did the photograph first, and sometimes I did the poem first, and we went back and forth. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you first off a few of those. Oops, it looks like it's disabled.
Oh, it should not be, because I have it set to allow.
Well, I can show you in the book then. Just a few of these, so you kind of get an idea. So she does what are called, can you see those? Composite photographs.
Yes.
And the reason this got started in the first place is that we did a words and images exercise with a local art museum. And she was given my poem, and I was given a different photograph of hers, but I've written quite a bit about hearts and the body already. And so that kind of started us off. So I'll go ahead and show you the image that she created out of my poem. My father had his first, and this is the second importance about the timing, I guess, Alan and Betsy. My father had his first heart attack. Can you see that image? When he was-
Pull the book back to you. You're too close to the camera. Beautiful, thank you.
Okay. He had his first heart attack when he was 38. He had 10 cardiac arrests, and he died after an unsuccessful heart transplant when he was 65. I had just been to visit him from central Pennsylvania. My parents were living in Ohio when the blizzard of '93 was forecasted. And those of you who live on the East Coast may remember that. I rushed home to be safe, and a man died in a car accident, and my father got his heart from that. But I couldn't get back because all the roads and highways were closed down. My father lived for 3 weeks. His blood actually got infected and he died after that. But I've always kept thinking about that stranger's heart being buried inside of my father. So this is the poem Treacherous Driving that's paired with Karen's photograph there. It's as safe as traveling to work, a cardiologist before performing a transplant. The first night of the blizzard, that stranger inched into Ohio. Halfway through, he skidded into our snow-speckled lives. His heart is buried in my father, who is buried. This is the hole in the stranger, in my father, in my own cracked chest, hail cupped in its cavity, the aorta beginning to freeze. All winter, the weather preaches white lies, fields blank of roads, a curve straightened, the even light of sky. Tonight, the breeze is all icicles, banner-like from the clouds. Nothing is movable in this treacherous state. Our wheels spin, the rhythm of breath that pulls us, then stalls. The law of the body, of the state, cannot replace the chain reaction, jackknifed lives, hope piling into hope. The man and his heart, cold on an icy road, warmed us for weeks, while winter, a clear blue thing, wafted light. So that's the poem that kind of started this book length collaboration. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Next up, Mary Beth.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here today, and I have a lot of hard acts to follow. These poems have been wonderful, and the book's wonderful as well. I am a poet pretty new to the verse virtual community. I want to thank Jim for encouraging me to not be shy and join in today and present my book. I really appreciate that. I learned about verse virtual several months back. My book was published by Kelsey Books, and kind of through following the Kelsey authors, as I became very interested in the publisher, I learned about verse virtual, and I really have greatly enjoyed following a lot of the poems in the journal and the poets. So I look forward to being an active member in the community. So my book today is, it's called Winter at a Summer House. I think you can see it.
Yep, we can see that. Thank
Okay.
you.
So Winter at a Summer House is divided into 6 sections that are each associated with a different phase of life, pretty much forming a narrative. So I was lucky enough to have several well-respected authors review the book, and they did all pretty much across the board point that narrative elements out. And I'm going to use some of their words to talk about it because I think they do a better job than I did. One said that the poems in this book entice us into the arc of a woman's life and tip us into her fall from innocence into experience. And another said that the poems are arrayed with such stunning craft that the art dissolves into the narrative. One forgets that one is reading and imagines that one is reliving this life. So I wrote these poems in both free and formal verse. And most reviewers also commented on the rhythmic diversity in the language of the poems, with one of them going so far, and this was somebody that I didn't know, so I loved this review. They thought the language in the poems was powerfully auditory, and they went so far as to say, often reminiscent of the words of Gerard Manley Hopkins. Now, I know that's a little over the top, but I was thrilled, so I'm just going to share that. Lastly, I guess reviewers commented on the imagery in the poem, a lot of vivid imagery, particularly water and ocean imagery. And I grew up in Massachusetts near the Atlantic Ocean, so there is a lot of that imagery in the book. So I'm going to conclude by reading the title poem from the book. It channels a lot of the themes: memory and play, family, joy and loss, kind of channeling what some other people have done. This book was partly dedicated to my father because I wrote a lot of the poems during the last year of his life, which wasn't too long ago, where I was taking care of him. And so a lot of the poems that others have read today have really resonated with me. So the book's cover, and also there's just ocean, ocean, ocean everywhere. So I'm going to go back, show you this cover. The cover actually also channels all the themes in the book. My artist's sister designed it to accompany this poem in particular that I'm reading. It's the last poem in the collection. So, Winter at a Summer House. The walls shrink close. The pipes heave a last shudder, and snow seals the hush. Ghosts huddle under blankets, shivering through long nights to the tap, tap, tap of a loose shutter. When a floorboard groans at an unexpected touch of light, they fling off their covers and roam the house, waking up others dozing under eaves in closets. They slip outside to the jetty, where one of them hovers on the point, then dives, and they cheer, their silvery cries soaring as she rises and plummets on the swells of the white winter sea. Thank you.
Very good. That concludes our list. I'm going to switch back to gallery view, and you'll see this in the recording later. First, I would just like to say thank you to all of you for participating. We did this a year ago as an effort to get more exposure for authors' books because of the pandemic, basically shutting down the capability of doing readings and launches. So I'm delighted that we were able to do this, and we're going to do a lot more of them. So come back, you'll see a lot more artists presenting, authors presenting their work. I'm going to post again, if you're willing, my address. I would love to have a book for the first virtual library, and that is a request, not an obligation. Make sure all of you have posted in the chat information on where we can get your books, because that's the purpose of this. Get them off of the shelf and into someone's hands for reading. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to stop the recording now, but I'm not going to close the meeting just yet.